feel like I've got hair. Okay. Can't even find it. Right. Oh, I've got it. I've got it. Right. Hello, I'm Daniela Lawler, and welcome to the first episode of my 10-part series all about the foundations of your health. I'm a registered nutritionist and I'm also a lecturer at the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. And I'm hugely passionate about natural medicine and our innate ability to self-heal. I believe that all we need to grow, survive and thrive has been given to us by Mother Nature. But it's more apparent than ever that we have lost that symbiotic interdependence with nature, favouring science over natural medicine. Now, I say science in inverted commas because it's not like natural methods don't have scientific data to back it up, but it somehow gets snubbed as quackery. Now, you have to remember, we are natural beings of this earth. We are not man-made. We are not machines. And this is where this symbiotic independence that I speak about occurs. We are microbes. We are more microbes than we are our own body cells. And these microbes speak to the environment around us. So what we need to do is start to reconnect to the natural beings we really are and remember what it is to be human again. My journey of discovery began when a friend of mine introduced me to green tea, and she told me about all the amazing health benefits. And I was just completely blown away. I'd never heard about food being spoken about in this way before. So then this just sparked off a curiosity, and I just thought, what else could food be doing for me? Now, I got lost along the way in my 20s, and I had all the wrong ideals about food. I was a fat phobic, I was calorie restricting, I avoided salt, and I was consumed by eating this fake diet food. And I felt terrible. My energy was low, my weight was never really where I wanted it to be. I always felt like I had to starve myself in order to be slim. Life was pretty miserable living in this food prison. Then, one day, I was enlightened again. I picked up a health magazine in a health cafe, and here I was again, hearing about these amazing health benefits of food. It talked about the benefits of fat and coconut oil, and now chocolate was good for you in the form of raw cacao. It reignited that interest I had back when I was in my early 20s. So I started to cook with these foods and make all these really interesting, nutritious, tasty desserts. And then I bought my first health book, which was by somebody called David Wolfe, or you may also know him by his eccentric name, David Avocado Wolfe. Now, these new flavors and nutrients I was introducing to my body tasted amazing, and I couldn't believe this was healthy food for me. And that's when I decided maybe I should study nutrition. So then I enrolled in a course at the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. And that's the beginning of my journey now as a health practitioner. I started my own health practice as soon as I qualified in 2017, and I've seen a huge variety of patients ever since. And what I try to do with every single patient is wake them up from their slumber of eating and consuming these fake foods and start a real food revolution for them. And you can see their eyes light up when I say to them, fat is on the menu. Eat your butter. Eat raw chocolate. The fat on your meat is okay for you. And they can't believe it. They can't believe it when I also say, fat does not cause heart disease. It's the sugar and the inflammatory foods we've been consuming over years. Now you've got to question to yourself, we have an amazing healthcare system now, don't we? So why is chronic disease rising instead of falling? Through my later episodes, I will tell you some shocking facts and statistics when it comes to chronic disease. Now maybe we should stop looking outside and start with looking at what's on our plates. Now this first episode is called the germ theory versus the soil theory. And I'm going to compare these two theories, and I will show you how the germ theory is actually the basis of modern pharma and our modern healthcare system. But is this theory the right theory? Further on through my other episodes, I will dive deep into the foods that you eat. I will teach you how to eat again. I will look at the environment that you're living in. Can it be toxic for you? What about the water you're consuming? Is this causing you harm? And then I will finish my series looking at the blue zone diets. Now the blue zones are the areas around the earth that contain the most amount of centenarians than any other population groups. Now these are people that are living to 100 and above in good health. So firstly, what if we looked at disease and illness in a different light? What if we viewed symptoms as a protective mechanism of the body to self-heal? An innate natural process to protect our health, not something we need to start defending at every level and suppressing those symptoms that we have. Now, this is the current modelling system of our healthcare. You have a symptom, you get a drug, and you put a plaster over that symptom. But the question is that a cure? All I see around me is people walking around vertically sick with pills for symptoms of other pills and for side effects of pills. This polypharmacy that's going on. Modern medicine is built upon suppression of symptoms, rather than waking up to the fact that maybe these symptoms are signals from our body that it's actually trying to rebalance itself. Now, a really good example of this is the fever. Now, we get a fever when we have a whole body systemic reaction to an infection, but we have had it ingrained in us that the fever is actually our enemy, and we must suppress this fever because it can take hold of us, it can cause febrile convulsions in our children, and it can cause brain damage. What if I tell you that fevers are actually your friend, and it's your body's natural innate healing system kicking in to raise the body's temperature to actually burn the virus out? Are you surprised? And what do we do when we have a fever? We are taught to reach for a prophylaxis treatment like paracetamol and reduce that fever. But what if I told you that I have a 6 and an 8-year-old child and I have never suppressed a fever in them? They have never had a drop of Calpol in their life. When I tell other mothers about this, they can't believe that I'm saying this to them. But my children are no different to yours. Mine have had chicken pox and hand, foot and mouth and tonsillitis, and they've had high temperatures. And I've got through this knowing that this is just an innate reaction of the body trying to heal itself. I'm in fact more scared of suppressing the fever than I am of the fever. Because what happens is, when you suppress a fever, you are suppressing the immune system, and you run the risk of something more sinister taking hold of the body. And this is why when I hear stories of people and other children getting a simple illness and then it develops into something more sinister, so then everybody's scared of that other illness, like chickenpox. We're scared of that now, aren't we? Because chickenpox can develop into something really serious. But I want to know the journey of that child. What has happened in the process that this infection, that is quite a normal process for a child to go through, has developed into something more serious. And you'll probably find along the way there's been some kind of immune suppression that's happened in the form of the use of a prophylaxis like Calpol. And this is why I'm actually scared of suppressing the fever more than I am of the fever itself. We also need to start seeing illness differently. Illness, in my view, is a sign of detoxification needing to happen. We've got a body full of toxins that needs releasing. If you imagine a cup and you keep filling this cup with toxins over the days and the months and the years, then this cup will become full and it needs to release. And this is what illness is. It's a purging of toxins. Now, if you think about what happens when you get ill, you release mucus from your nose, you may vomit, you may have diarrhea, and you have a higher temperature, and you sweat and perspire more, because this is a way of the body releasing toxins. And sometimes after you've had that bout of illness, when you've had a bad cold or a flu, you actually feel better afterwards. Now, I know that isn't always the case for everybody. Now, if that's not the case for you, whatever is underlying there, or whatever toxicity is there, is unresolved. And this is when you start to develop chronic disease. Ideally, when you've had this purging ceremony happen from the body, you should feel nice and clear and brighter afterwards. And it's the point where your immune system develops and becomes stronger. And that's why children have these childhood diseases. Why do you think they have childhood diseases in the first place, if you think about it? Why do children get chicken pox? Why do they get measles? Why are they there? Well, they are there because it's a way of the immune system developing and growing. And it's also been cited that some of these early infections in childhood are actually protection against certain cancers in adulthood. So I think there's a lot we don't know, and I think there's a lot that we are messing with and interfering with when we shouldn't be. In 1905, there was a prominent British surgeon called Sir Frederick Treves, and a quote from him states, "The process of disease aim not at the destruction of life, but at the saving of it." Just have a think about those words. So maybe disease is not a meaningless error of nature or biology, but actually a special program that's been created by nature over millions of years to protect us. Now, there are great examples of natural medicines out there that help to support the natural healing systems of the body. The number one on my list is homeopathy. This is what has got me through my children's illnesses growing up. That's all I've ever used, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's an energy-based medicine, and it actually uses certain poisons that are in a diluted form. So when you use homeopathy, you have to match the remedy to the symptom. So an example of that is stomachache. So if somebody is doubled over with stomachache, and no matter what it is from, whether it is food poisoning or they've got some gastric bug, it doesn't matter because the symptoms are the same. So the remedy for that is arsenicum. But arsenicum is actually taken from arsenic, the poison. So if you are poisoned with arsenic, what are your symptoms? Well, you'll be doubled over in pain in the stomach. So this is how homeopathy works. It matches these symptoms you have in the body. And I've seen really profound effects with homeopathy. A good example of that is with my youngest child. When she was 3, she developed tonsillitis and she had the white pustules on her tonsils. So I took her to the doctors for a diagnosis. They prescribed 10 days of antibiotics, but I wanted to use something natural. I wanted her body to learn from this, and I wanted to support the natural healing systems of the body. So I used a homeopathic remedy instead for her tonsillitis, and she was clear of her tonsillitis in 3 days. Now, other examples of these natural medicines out there are microimmunotherapy, and this is something I use in my clinic. And microimmunotherapy is again quite like homeopathy, where it's a diluted form of a substance, but in this respect, it's a diluted form of the white blood cells in the immune system. and it's fantastic for any immune-related disorders like autoimmunity and cancers. And what microimmunotherapy does is if the immune system needs a lift, it needs upregulating, it helps it to do that. And if it needs downregulating, it also helps it to do that. So it helps to create balance in the immune system. Because autoimmunity is when the immune system has stopped being able to differentiate self from non-self, and it starts to attack your own bodily tissue. So this is why something like microimmunotherapy is amazing for autoimmunity. Other therapies are cannabis oil. Cannabis oil enlightens the endocannabinoid system that we have in our bodies. It literally lights it up. And this helps to initiate a healing process within the body. And it's really good for cancer. And we have herbal remedies as well in an abundance. I'm not a herbalist, but I like to use herbs in my practice. And I generally use them for hormonal dysregulation or for the stress response, because herbs are really good at adapting the body in certain situations. There's also lots of healing foods that have antimicrobial and antiviral benefits as well. So let's dive into the germ theory. Now, Louis Pasteur was the scientist that made this theory prominent at its time. Now, this was in the 1800s, and Louis Pasteur based this theory on the fact that airborne microbes cause disease. So what he was basically saying was that we have microbes around us all the time, and we must defend against them at any opportunity, because you never know, you might get infected and you'll be seriously ill. What does that sound like? That sounds like the current climate that we are in now. And what are we doing? We're trying to defend against these microbes at any opportunity by distancing from people, by wearing masks, by putting sanitizer on our skin. And now we're seeing the introduction of wide vaccination in the community. Louis Pasteur says that germs are the primary cause of disease. It's nothing to do with the state of your body. It doesn't matter. You can be a healthy person, you can be an old person, a young person. These germs don't care, and they can infect anybody at any time. But what this theory does is take away the self-responsibility for health and puts it in somebody else's hands, like pharma. Now, on the flip side, there's another theory called the soil theory. And this was pioneered by another scientist at the same time as Louis Pasteur, and his name was Antoine Béchamp. You could probably say these two were rivals at that time in history. Now, Antoine Béchamp's theory put the onus on the person, and he believed that these pathogens, these disease-causing microbes, were actually present in the body already before somebody exhibited signs of disease. So the question is, if these microbes are already present in the body, then why am I okay today and then not tomorrow? Antoine Béchamp said it was the environment within that had a significant change that caused these microbes to develop into something more sinister. And that development into something more sinister may be a translocation from the area in which that microbe inhabits within the body. So a really good example of this is E. coli. Now, you may have heard of E. coli before as a form of food poisoning that you can get. And did you know you have E. coli in your intestine? And it actually helps you to produce vitamin K. Vitamin K is the coagulation vitamin, so it helps your blood to clot. We need our bloods to clot, or else we would bleed to death, but you don't want over-clotting. Another example of a bacteria that can translocate is the meningococcal bacteria, which is the bacteria responsible for meningitis. Now, most people are walking around with this bacteria in their nose and in their throat, but if this bacteria translocates to the brain, it can cause meningitis, which can be a very serious and life-threatening condition. Now, The question is, how does that start to translocate somewhere else and cause us a problem? Now, if we go back to the fever and we think about how we treat a fever with a prophylaxis treatment and we suppress that fever, we are essentially suppressing the immune system. And then we are allowing something more sinister to take hold of the body. So this is why I want you to start seeing disease in a different light. Start supporting the natural, innate ability for your body to heal. And an easy way to do this is to start using homeopathic medicine instead of pharmaceutical medicine. There's many great homeopaths out there, and there's lots of support out there as well. A company that I use over and over again is Helios. Helios actually have a 24-hour helpline, so you can call them day and night, and if you or your child need any advice on what supplement or ailment, should I say, that you should take, you can call them and you can get that advice at any single point. You may think, well, what about my genes? Do they not make me more susceptible to get certain diseases? Well, genes actually only count for 20%. So if you bathe that gene in the wrong environment, then you may turn that gene on and put yourself at risk of that disease. Now, there's a whole study on this, and it's called epigenetics. So what changes in the body can happen that can create an environment for these pathogens to thrive? So diet is a huge factor. If you're not consuming a nutrient-dense diet and you're having a lot of fake foods and processed foods, then you're not giving your body the nutrition it needs to thrive. You're putting more chemicals in there from the way the food is grown or the way the food is preserved. I will go into this in much more detail in my further episodes. Hormonal changes can create more toxic environments. Now, this might happen because you might have an excessive amount of estrogen in the body. And estrogen is a driver for certain cancers and causes growths within the body, because estrogen is a growth factor. And it's fine in the amounts that we need it in that are in balance with the body. But an excessive amount can create an environment for disease. An acidic environment is a disease-favourable environment. Cancer thrives in an acidic environment. To make your body more alkaline, you need to be consuming more natural foods. Emotions can create a toxic environment. If you've got high amounts of chronic stress, your body won't be in a parasympathetic state, which is rest, digest, and heal. If you are in a state of chronic stress, you will be in sympathetic dominance, which is fight or flight. When you're in fight and flight mode all the time, your body's not going to be digesting food properly and it's not going to be healing properly. Hydration. It's a simple thing that we can all do, but most of us aren't even getting enough water in our daily consumption. Now, water is needed for every single cell in the body for its metabolic processes. So make sure you're getting good quality water every day. I would aim to have at least 8 glasses. And for every caffeinated drink, so for every coffee, for every tea, every fizzy caffeinated drink, you need to have 1 extra glass of water because it's dehydrating. Oxygen. So you may think, oxygen, I breathe every day. But actually, a lot of us aren't breathing correctly and we're walking around in a slightly hypoxic state and we're not getting delivery of oxygen sufficiently to our cells. So you can start to practice breathing exercises. Have a look on YouTube, there's many videos to show you how to do this. And also exercising or being out in the natural woodlands is also a way of oxygenating the body. Cancer thrives in a deoxygenated environment. Now we need to start thinking about disease in a more holistic light. The way our bodies are made are actually there to prevent the body from getting diseased. If I said to you, where is the inside of your body? You'll probably say it's inside your mouth and inside. But actually, your inside is still your outside. And a great way you can start to understand this is if you ate an inedible object like a marble. If you ate that marble, it would come out the other side whole and unchanged. And this is because Your body is selective of what it lets inside, and your inside is actually your bloodstream and your lymphatic system. And if you get poisons in there from foods or from environment or some kind of pathogen bacteria that gets in the wrong place, this is when you start to develop illness. And of course, this overload of toxins within the body is also a sign of your body needing to purge toxicity. So let's talk about the physiology of our body in terms of disease prevention. So we have our skin, and our skin is naturally antibacterial and it's slightly acidic. So this forms the first part of our defense system. But what if we are damaging this system by constantly putting hand sanitizer on? This is damaging part of your immune system by doing that, because actually you have a natural antimicrobial system right here. And then when we go into the mouth, it's naturally antibacterial. So you may remember the term used, kiss it better. And this is because naturally, if we cut a finger, we put it into our mouths, or if our child hurts themselves, you go to kiss it better, don't you? And this is a natural innate instinct that we have because we have this natural antimicrobial and antibacterial saliva in our mouths. And then we have the whole passage down to your digestive system, right through to your anus. And this passage is lined with a mucous membrane. And this mucous membrane actually houses 80% of your immune system. This immune system on your mucous lining is selective of what it lets pass through into the bloodstream. So in our digestive tract, we have these tight junctions. And if we don't live well, we smoke, we drink lots of alcohol, we have junk foods, we're highly stressed, this gut lining starts to open. And behind this lining here is our bloodstream. What can happen is large particles of food that's not been digested properly can start to infiltrate. This is how you get food intolerances. And also, if any pathogen, so a disease-causing microbe, gets into the system and bypasses the stomach and gets into the small intestine, it can start to infiltrate your bloodstream and cause a systemic reaction. And this is when you get ill. Your stomach is also a place to burn pathogens out as well. And don't forget, your stomach is actually a highly acidic environment, and it's there not just to digest food, but also to burn out any pathogens that might come into that area before they get into the digestive system further. So if you're constantly taking proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, you take over-the-counter Gaviscon or antacids, then you're going to be lowering this stomach acid and actually making a more hospitable environment for pathogens. The majority of people don't have sufficient stomach acid, and that again is making more a favourable environment for pathogens. So if we go back to Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp, it was actually cited that Louis Pasteur admitted on his deathbed, the germ is nothing, the soil is everything. Now in my 10-part series, I'm going to go into all the foundations of health and what you can do to help control your health and put your health in your own hands. Thank you for listening today. Episode 2 is all about the art of eating well, and I'm going to dive deep into your diet so you can start to understand the types of foods you need to be eating. Thank you. See you next time.